Welcome to Good Life. I'm Dean Wilson. Great program today. Judge Michael Carrozzo is with me. I've never talked to a judge before, really. Someone who's called Your Honor. You stand when he enters the room. It's kind of an intimidating thing, but it's a great interview. He's a great guy. Stay tuned. Judge Michael Carrozzo, The Good Life, is next. Welcome to Good Life. I'm Dean Wilson. So glad you joined us today. GoodLifeTelevision.org is always up. You can see lots of great interviews, full-form interviews, power clips, some incredible people, all walks of life, business, nonprofit work, public servants, athletes, young people. It's been an amazing year, so we'd love you to go to GoodLifeTelevision.org. You can also find us on most of the social media platforms. I'm really excited about today's guest. Judge Michael Carrozzo is with me, and I've never had a judge on before. There may or may not be some parking tickets.
We don't like to be on television.
You know, I was thinking about your profession. It's kind of a mysterious thing. Like, I've never met a judge before.
That's a good thing.
What's it like being a judge?
Well, instead of being a conversation starter, it's a conversation stopper. So, in social settings, when my profession is disclosed, most people change their conversation. So it doesn't start conversations; usually ends conversations.
Really?
Yes. For some reason, it has that effect on people.
Interesting. You grew up on a ranch.
I did.
Tell us kind of about your life, your upbringing.
Sure. Yeah. So I grew up in Santa Clarita, California. With my father, who was a movie cowboy, stuntman and an actor, and he had a ranch outside of Los Angeles in Santa Clarita, and that's where I grew up, riding horses and learning how to be a cowboy with my dad, and it was a wonderful experience as a young boy growing up. It was outstanding.
Wow. And did you always want to be a lawyer?
No, I didn't want to be a lawyer until I interned in Washington, D.C. for a senator at the time, and I noticed during meetings that he would have a round table with a variety of seeking advice from a variety of his advisors, and there were two lawyers on his staff of like 30 people, and I noticed that he tended to follow their advice, and I realized that would be an advantage in life to have that education, so that I would have a particular insight into a variety of different areas, and that's what got me interested in the law.
Huh. And then, so UCLA, Loyola Law School.
Yeah, I actually started at Santa Barbara City College in 1984, and then transferred to UCSB, and then ultimately transferred to UCLA, and that's where I graduated in 1987, 22 years after I was born at UCLA. So it was a round trip.
Wow.
Yes.
And then in 2014, Governor Brown appointed you to be the Superior Court judge here in Santa Barbara, California.
That's correct.
And was that a surprise? I mean, was that something you saw potentially coming?
Well, it's not a surprise in that most people don't know the process of becoming a judge, but the primary means in which you become a judge, you apply to the governor's office. So I had applied the year prior, so I was certainly surprised that I was appointed, but I knew that I was being considered.
Okay.
And so it wasn't surprising in one sense. In the other sense, of course, it was very exciting and thrilling to be appointed.
Yeah. Since we've had all this talk about the Supreme Court this year, what are the levels? Like, I know I hear about circuit courts and superior courts, and can you?
Yeah, sure. Well, currently you have in the states, you have, at least in California, you have the Superior Court, and so that is the trial level court. And then above that is the Court of Appeal without an S. They call it the DCA, the District Court of Appeal, and that is for Santa Barbara is in Ventura. And then after that, you have the California Supreme Court. So that would be the way in which a case would progress in California. You also have the federal court system, which has the closest jurisdiction is Los Angeles for Santa Barbara. So if you had a federal case, you would file it in Los Angeles. If you appealed, it would go to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals with an S. And then if you appealed from there, it would go to the U.S. Supreme Court. And that's basically a two-track system that we have.
Okay, that's interesting. I didn't know that. What is the typical case you see? If there is one?
I see a variety. I see everything from traffic cases to murder cases. I'm a criminal court judge, and so I see everything, every criminal case, every type of criminal case that we have in Santa Barbara appears in one of our criminal courts.
So you've seen it all, probably. I mean, you've seen a lot.
Yes, surprisingly for a small city, a small county, you see a lot of variety of crime in Santa Barbara County.
I was thinking about your job this morning and kind of the weight of your job. And in fact, the guest before you sitting on that couch was a young man who's spent 5 years in prison. He was talking about his road, and he's now, thankfully, there's been a change, and it's wonderful. But I was thinking about the fact that I was having you two on back to back. So here's a young man who comes before you on a really stressful day. I mean, you wake up in the morning and you go to work. He wakes up in the morning and he's coming to see you, and it's like this is like life changing. I mean, and I think about the people that come before you. They're dressing their best, they're praying, their family's praying, they're stressed out, what's going to happen. How do you like balance that? The law and then the human component, that you're dealing with human beings that have had their own journey, and yet you have to make these incredibly life-changing decisions. Does that make sense?
Yes. Well, in the United States, we have what's called the rule of law, and which means the law is applied fairly and evenly to everyone, the same, whether the person has whatever circumstances they come into, the law is applied the same. And so in California, we have a variety of sentencing factors and guidelines that we use to sentence. And so also in Santa Barbara, we have our probation department, which writes lengthy reports. And so we use all that information to follow the guidelines and pronounce a sentence that is just and fair equally to everyone. Of course, there are mitigating factors, and the court considers all the mitigating factors, some of which apply in every case, some apply less often or more often, and so the court considers all of those factors when making decisions.
Does it feel routine to you, or does it feel like every day is like a new?
Well, one of the skills that is required by a judge is once you put on the robe, you lose any concept of bias or prejudice. You look at each case new, regardless of whether the person has appeared before you 10 times. You look at each case new. You look at each defendant new. You do not you don't prejudge anyone, and part of the reason I believe why we wear the robes is that it lends itself to a neutrality, which the court is there for justice and fairness, and of course we consider the individual. I mean, each individual case has its own mitigating factors and aggravating factors. We're contrasting the individual rights of the defendant versus the rights of the community, and so the court considers all of those factors when making decisions.
It's really fascinating. It's really a fascinating thing to think about, being a judge. You're a professor. You've served the country, which yesterday was Veterans Day, so thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And I know you have a passion for veterans, and I was reading a little bit about this Veterans Treatment Court. Can you describe that and kind of what the idea was?
Sure. And let me preface that with one of the great things about Santa Barbara County is that we are very pro-collaborative court, pro-treatment court. So we have a variety of treatment courts. We have mental health treatment courts. We have restorative court. We have a drug treatment court in all aspects or all areas of the county. So Santa Barbara Superior Court is very open to innovation and new ideas when it comes to treating people in the community. And so Veterans Court is one of those treatment courts, a collaborative court, meaning that we have a group of people that participate in Veterans Treatment Court in a collaborative fashion. And so you'll have attorneys on both sides working together instead of working in an adversarial role. And what it does is the motivation is to get people out of custody and into treatment so that the community will be safer, so that the individual will be a better member of the community. And it works particularly well with veterans because they have a history of service to their community. And once they feel that they're back in the community, they tend to do well. And so what we do in the Veterans Treatment Court is we bring in the defendants and we surround them with services, primarily through the VA, but also through local organizations. And through that comfort of our group, they're able to get resources that they didn't have before, such as VA benefits, Medicare benefits. And with those benefits, we get them housing, we get them, oftentimes they need medication that they're not getting. And then you'll see that their crime rate then reduces because they're more involved in the community, they're getting better resources, and they stop committing crimes for the most part.
Interesting. And was that something you and your predecessor, did I read, were involved in establishing? It
started out in New York almost 20 years ago now. And then from New York, it came to Santa Maria with Judge Flores. He started the first Veterans Treatment Court in Santa Barbara. And then Judge Eskin started the first treatment court here in the city of Santa Barbara. And then I took over the court from Judge Eskin when I was on the bench. And so we've been running it now for almost 10 years. And it's been very successful. We've treated hundreds of veterans and all walks of veterans, from the Vietnam veteran who hasn't assimilated into society now for 30, 40 years. We've had some Korean War veterans. We have a lot of Gulf War veterans, and we even have active duty members. And so when I talk to veterans groups, one of their concerns is, we want to make sure that you get the right veterans are going into Veterans Treatment Court. In other words, veterans are very concerned about people that hold themselves out to be veterans, and part of my job is to look at their records and to confirm their veteran status, to confirm through their DD-214, which is their official government records. I look at those. I don't admit people into Veterans Court till I've seen those personally, and so I can verify that they're veterans. And then part of the process is weighing their offense versus their level of service. And you can imagine there are a variety of offenses, from very minor offenses to more serious, and there's a variety of service, from people who have the minimal eligibility requirements to people who have won Purple Hearts and Silver Stars. And so part of what we do as a collaborative group is to balance that out and make sure that we get a just result, not only for the defendant, but for the victims and for the community.
Wow. What are your thoughts on, hearing you talk about that, I think about this current discussion. There's a lot of conversation around drug rehabilitation versus incarceration. What is your thinking on that in your experience with what is the best route?
Well, our goal primarily is to rehabilitate through treatment. That's our primary goal at this point, is getting defendants to get treatment. The hard part is the follow-up, the buy-in. You can order a defendant to go to drug treatment, but you can't ensure that they're actually believing in it and following the procedures or the program. And so that's the hard part. So we realize, one of the things you have to realize is that defendants are not going to be perfect. They're not going to have a 100% success rate. And you have to build into the system where they have graduated levels of increasing treatment, from outpatient once a week to group therapy to individual therapy to sober living to residential treatment. And so we go through sort of a variety of options, and that's what our providers help us with. We use county mental health, we use our veteran service officer, and all of those combined determine the right level of treatment. And when people fail, we increase the treatment. Our last option is incarceration, which is really not, at this point, not what we'd like to do. We'd like to treat people with drug addiction and mental health issues. equally as difficult and than the drug addiction is the mental health issues that we're faced with, and so we use treatment for those as well rather than incarceration.
It seems like it makes a lot of sense.
I think it does.
What do you think about our system? This is kind of a bigger picture question. The American system, the justice system, which, there's the old quote that says it's the worst system except for all the others, or something like that. But I have a lot of respect for our system, even though, of course, there's always issues. But what would be your thought, your perspective, I guess, on the American justice system?
Well, I believe in the rule of law. I believe that we have a system of checks and balances that works. I believe that each division of government has their own responsibilities. I believe that every branch of government needs to improve, and we in the court are constantly working on being innovative and not looking to the past, but looking to the future to make things work better for the community and for all the people that are involved in the justice system.
You're a professor. What do you teach?
Well, I teach at the law school, the local law school. I teach a legal writing and analysis class, and then I teach constitutional law at the City College.
Wonderful. But what would you say to, this is kind of a weird question, but to a young person like my previous guest, to a young person who makes a mistake, and they're going to enter into the system to deal with that mistake. Would you have any advice for that young person?
Well, sure. I mean, we all make mistakes, and everyone needs to realize that we all make mistakes. It's not the mistake you make; it's how you respond to that, and how you recover from that, and how you take responsibility for that. And I think that that when we deal with people who've made mistakes, what we want them to do is be accountable for that, and then work and take steps to correct their mistakes as well as they can, and to move forward. And that's what we're trying to do. And I think that there are some mistakes that any of us can make, and there are some mistakes that are more serious and dramatic. And so it depends on the level of mistake as to sort of how our society will want to react or respond to the type of mistakes that people make. But for the most part, we want people to accept responsibility for their own mistakes, everyone, and then and try to improve and try to overcome those mistakes. And we've all faced obstacles in our life, and what's important is how you deal with those obstacles and how you become a better person, not only for yourself, but for our community. And and I'm one of those people that believes in responsibility and duty for other people. It's not enough just to do what you love, and which is a great sort of mantra. But what's I think more important is you're doing things for other people and doing things for our society to push it forward and to make it a better society for everyone that lives in it. And I think our young people should be looking towards that, as to fulfilling service and fulfilling duty equally as much as finding their own happiness is important to help other people get through this, because we're all in this together. One of the things I learned in the Army was the first thing you do is you look to the person to the left and look to the person to the right and see if they need help before you move on. And so I think that's a good message for everyone in our society. Look to the person on either side of you and try to see if you can help them proceed through life.
That's a great way to close. Judge, thanks for your service to the country and on the bench.
Thank you.
It's good to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.